Hello again. I was watching a video this morning by a British expat in the Philippines. He was having another little discussion about Tampo and how hard it is for Filipinas in particular, to handle confrontation and things like that. But of course it got back around to the whole subject of Tampo. I think sometimes these guys, excuse me, not specifically him, but a lot of guys, anytime their wife, their Filipina partner of whatever type, isn't really in a great mood and jumping up and down in ecstasy, they act like, well, she's giving me Tampo, you know? I made a video, I don't know, probably a few months back, where I was talking about, going through hard times and how you just have to keep on moving. And I mentioned that I had talked to a guy. I was going through some tough times, and just feeling, I don't know, not right, kind of down. And and he asked me, well, you still finding joy in the things you like and things like that, questions like that. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, man, you're not depressed. You've just got the blues. And that's the way it is sometimes. Life isn't always perfectly happy and just jumping up and down with joy, And sometimes you go through different emotions and you've got things on your mind and you're concerned about things. You're trying to sort things out, trying to figure out how to do something or whatever. And you're just not going to be, Mr. or Mrs. Happy all the time in your demeanor. Now Tampo, in terms of, for those who are watching this channel that aren't familiar with that term, that's what they call it in the Philippines. It's kind of like the silent treatment on steroids, where somebody just doesn't talk to you for like, not just hours, but like days, weeks, months, years, I don't know. It's it can be pretty bad with some people, and the typical remarks about it are just that Filipinos like to avoid confrontation at all costs, and they aren't very good at dealing with it. And so what they do, instead of fighting with you or something like you would people here in the West, they just kind of retreat into themselves and just don't even talk to you at all, which, I don't know, in some ways maybe that's better than just blowing up and saying something you can't take back that you'll wish you hadn't scarred the person with afterwards, But that's just a cultural thing. But people from all over sometimes are not in the greatest mood, and they sorry, I'm just wondering why all this traffic is backed up here when there's nothing going on. Everybody gets a little quiet sometimes, or they're not necessarily mad at you. They're just thinking about things, and they've got stuff on their mind, and they've got to work it out. And just because they're not talking to you as much as they might normally or something, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're giving you Tampo or being childish. But a lot of guys, that seems to be the stylish thing, though, to talk about when you're involved with the Filipina. Certainly, all the Philippine vloggers, that's one of the must-make videos, right up there with your monthly budget video and things like that. You got to have a video about the subject of Tampo and dealing with Filipinas and their moods, But a lot of people, too, they don't seem to understand that our wives put up with a lot of stuff from us. You look at Filipinas, hate it. You're swearing all the time, which is bad when you come to America where everybody swears all the time. But if you're married, your wife probably doesn't like it, and it stresses her out when you're sitting around swearing at the television because some sports team in some inconsequential game that has no impact at all on the future of the human race is not doing what you want them to do, or you're swearing at some news channel or some politician on TV, all that kind of stuff stresses them out. And don't you ever get down as a man sometimes, I mean, I've been in situations before where it's just things going on, trying to figure out how I'm going to get through a certain situation and what the best solution is, how to work things out, with minimal problems. And sometimes you just, get a little down about things, even though you know that, okay, I'm just going to keep marching and eventually going to get through this and straighten it out. But that doesn't mean you're always in the best, mood that you could possibly be. So that's my subject for today. Just, if you're married to someone from the Philippines, maybe sometimes they do get a little bit extreme, but you're coming from a different culture. And you also have to think too, if, especially if you're like some of us who are married to somebody that's much, much younger. You're married, say you're 60 years old, and you're married to somebody who's 30 years old. You've lived twice as long as they have, When they were born, you had already lived a 30-year life. And that's where they're at now, And you've gone on another 30 years since then, been through all kinds of other things, seen a lot of things in life that they haven't yet, and come from a totally different culture. And you're going to have different outlooks on things sometimes. And sometimes, maybe somebody from the Philippines can be a little bit strong-willed, and they just don't want to hear about not doing things the way that they had wanted to do them and things like that. And I think sometimes there is a tendency, once they've decided that they want to do things a certain way and they've gotten used to that idea and planned it to be that way, and if something happens where it can't, they're going to be upset and sad about it. But you know what? Aren't we all? If I plan something out, I've got it all figured out in my head how I'm going to do things. And then when you finally get in a position where you think, okay, we're going to do it now, and you find out the circumstances have changed, or you want to go somewhere, for instance. Maybe there's no more tickets available after you promised somebody, hey, we're going to go do this. Or maybe now the tickets are like 3 or 4 times what you thought they were going to be. Maybe somebody can't get off work, or somebody has to go to school, or whatever. Things change sometimes, and when we've been thinking for a long time about doing something, and especially if we feel like we've made promises to people or whatever, and then we have to change things, it's not unnatural to feel a little bit down about it and kind of sink into yourself and sulk a little bit, maybe, even though we know, but that's not the ultimate long-term solution. People are people. And if you are with somebody that's a lot younger than you, once again, how are you going to handle it, Even if you think that there's something wrong, or, you wish that they could get over it, they've probably wished the same thing about you at one time or another. And also you have to remember that you're the one who's like 60 years old, so, it's like, it's like when with some of our presidential candidates, old men and still acting immature and like children. We always have to look at things too as an opportunity for us to prove that we're grown up and that we're capable of dealing with our end of things the way that we should. Because anytime you've got 2 people in a relationship, there's going to be issues and things where both people are not necessarily in the exact same mood at the same time all the time. That's life. Doesn't mean that your wife is giving you Tampo and treating you bad. For what that's worth.